Kia ora, everyone, and welcome back to Stripped and Unscripted. I'm Vixen Temple.
And I am Madeline Rose.
And thank you so much for tuning into the show. We hope you enjoyed last week's corridor around mental health and all of that. And on today's episode, we're going to have a corridor about online censorship and how, while it specifically targets sex workers, how it impacts all of us and why online censorship is something that you should care about. So how we're going to talk about this show is going to go is I'm going to talk about like why online censorship exists and where it comes from. And then as the episode goes on, we're just going to share our experiences as spicy workers on the internet and how online censorship has vastly fucked with us. So before I share about online censorship, I just want to start by saying that this is a conversation that I would consider myself not an expert in, but like, fuck, I know a lot about this. I have been speaking about this for the last 7 years of my life. So much so, I've been interviewed on a variety of national and international media outlets for it. A couple of years ago, myself and a few other online sex work activists and sex educators were actually invited to an online webinar where we spoke to representatives of the World Health Organization about how online censorship is going to negatively impact our queer youth. So I'll expand upon that as the episode goes on. But yeah, this is just something that I feel like a broken record whenever I talk about it, but it is something that is so insidiously impacted my life, and it is as I'm going to explain, online censorship is a form of fascism. Let's explain what I mean by that. So, the year is 2018, and I have just started selling nudes via Snapchat. So I used to have this pay to access Instagram where I'd link to a buy me a coffee. People would donate money and they would be granted access to this Instagram where I had like soft implied nudes. And then if you wanted the full show, you would just have to pay me $50 a month to subscribe to my Snapchat, where I would do weekly cosplay strips and like shower shows. People from there could also get specific requests, like specific custom made content. This was OnlyFans before OnlyFans existed. So I'm doing that. It's my last year of uni. I'm doing that to make some money on the side to support my dietary required cost of groceries because I have celiac disease. I'm making good money. I'm having lots of fun. And then one day I log into my Instagram account and it says your Instagram has been removed for adult solicitation. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I do some research and I find out that there is a law that has been brought into the US called foster sister. So this is 2018. This is when Trump is in his first presidency. And what foster sister is, it's an online bill. Foster stands for Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. Sister stands for Stop Enabling Sex Trafficking Act. So sex work and sex trafficking unfortunately get correlated a lot, and it's so harmful for both sex workers and survivors of sex trafficking. But essentially, because people have this, like, what am I trying to say? Okay, I just want to say, whenever a celebrity is very loudly against sex trafficking, my mind is like, that's a pedophile. That is an abusive person. Usually celebrities use sex trafficking as really easy charitable things to make themselves look like upstanding citizens to the world, but they're hiding some bullshit behind closed doors. I'm looking at Ashton Kutcher. Anyways, so
Sorry.
Foster Sister was a bill brought in 2018, which essentially is this online criminal act that says that any solicitation of sex work, whether consensual or not, is sex trafficking. If you are trying to solicit anything sexual on the internet, whether it's between two consenting adults or not, it is dismissed as sex trafficking. And so what happens is social media specifically, when Meta owns Instagram and Facebook and most platforms, when these laws were brought in, what happens is anything that is seen as adult solicitation, anything, whether it's just like a woman dancing in a bikini, anything that could be seen as quote unquote solicitation gets flagged as trafficking and it gets deleted. So this is an anti-sex work bill disguised as we need to protect the children. We need to protect people from being trafficked because people are being trafficked on the internet and it's so dangerous and we need to stop that from happening. But I really need people to understand that it has actually made things so much worse for sex trafficking victims, because what happened when foster sister was brought in, so the internet used to be a really powerful tool. There used to be this blacklist website that sex workers used as like a community notice board on the internet that they could use to blacklist dangerous clients, to share really helpful resources about safety. It was a really powerful tool that sex workers used that once foster sister was implemented, got deleted. As well as that, the internet is such a powerful tool. So many people use the internet to advertise their work services, and sex workers should be no different. But when we try to advertise our services, even here in Aotearoa, this is the most frustrating thing, where sex work has been decriminalised since 2003 because of the Prostitutes Reform Act. Sex work for citizens of Aotearoa has been decriminalised. Even here, because the internet is owned by the US, I can operate my services as a sex worker without any criminal offence. But the second I advertise on the internet, it's deleted because the internet is owned by the US. And it is so frustrating because I really, as I said, I used Instagram to be an online content creator and I was making decent money. Like, I wasn't loaded or anything, but you're a uni student getting paid any money as a uni student is awesome. Full-time study, you get some extra money, that's awesome. I was supporting myself through the internet, and because that happened and I was struggling to advertise my services, I started working as a stripper because I was like, okay, I need to find other tools of getting a income because the internet is becoming really unsafe. And as the years have gone on, the reason I say that online censorship is a form of fascism, it's a form of eugenics, because what we are doing is essentially how online censorship works. It specifically targets sex workers, of course, but it's not just sex workers we're seeing being deplatformed. It's sex educators, it's women, it's queer people, it's POC people, it's any person or body that falls outside of the two-gender heteronormative binary that this patriarchal colonial world has fostered is flagged as pornographic, and that is used to deplatform it. It is censorship. So back in fucking Nazi fascist Germany, they go right-wing fascism. First they go for the disability community, then they go for sex workers. What they do is they put this idea, it's scapegoating. They fearmonger the wider community by putting this idea in people's heads of perverse people. Sex workers are perverted, trans people are perverted, gay people are perverted, disabled people are perverted. And those perversions need to be, as I mentioned in the last episode about false consciousness, need to be governed. They need to be controlled, and they can only be controlled by us people in power. So by putting this idea in people's subconscious that sex workers and queer people and people of color who already experience a history of being hypersexualized through racist, xenophobic tropes, by putting this idea in our consciousness that these people are perverse, that puts the idea that they're dangerous, that they need to be policed, and that is why online censorship is a form of eugenics. It is the modern witch hunt. It is putting pointing a finger at someone and saying, dangerous, perverted, delete them, erase them, literally deplatform them. So that is my, as simplest as I can, description of online censorship of how foster sister has got us to where we are now, and how we really need to have conversations separating sex trafficking from sex work, because foster sister has made things so much worse for victims of sex trafficking and so much harder for sex workers. And when you make the sex work industry harder to access, you make us more vulnerable to being trafficked. So I'm going to also link some articles I've written in the show notes about online censorship. I'll try and link the interviews I've done about it, but I really highly encourage people to go off and research this a bit more. I hope that my breakdown of it was accessible enough. Did that all make sense to you, Madeline? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so that totally made sense to me. I am definitely not as informed as Vixen, like 100% nowhere near as informed as Vixen. But I do know a fair bit about it, and honestly, when I do my Ask Me Anythings, I get so many questions and so many people bring up the link with sex work and sex trafficking, and it is genuinely just one of the most frustrating things to have to explain. Again, you're so right, like so many celebrities are like out here, like their whole thing is like the children, the sex work, the sex trafficking of children. And whilst that seems to be such a noble and wonderful like plight, again, so many of these people don't understand that like sex work and sex trafficking are not the fucking same thing. And yeah, I wish that was just like more known, because I get that question so often that I've explained it a couple of times, and I sort of I ignore it quite often because it's that common. But in terms of like the actual censoring, I also run my business online and have run my business online for the longest time. I'm not sure, Vixen, you can let me know if this is the case or not, but me and Vixen have for this podcast, we have a Buy Me a Coffee link, which is like a website where you can tip us and we can pull the money out of that through a separate account and then into our Kiwi bank accounts. And I'm pretty sure there was a little hiccup, was there not, Vixen, with it being to do with sex work? Am I right?
Yes. So in order for us to get our money paid out to us, we had to send through a screenshot of our social medias that we were advertising the Buy Me a Coffee on, and explain like why people are donating us money. And as I was doing that, I was like, this is whorephobic. They want to make sure that we're not selling nudes, because again, online censorship, it started with sex workers, but as I'll discuss as the show goes on, it impacts everyone that doesn't fall under the, like, it being a skinny white able-bodied guy. But yeah, we essentially had to prove that we weren't selling nudes, which was, I just remember as I was doing it, I was like, hang on a minute. I reckon they have clocked that a lot of sex workers, like I used Buy Me a Coffee for my sex work payments. Patreon was a big thing back in the day. Actually, before I started doing nudes, I got the idea from it. I used to follow a lot of cosplay models that had Patreons where they were posting nude versions of their cosplays. And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking genius. This is pre-OnlyFans days. But now Patreon has banned a lot of that. I've been banned off PayPal for selling nudes through PayPal. And what I really want to actually emphasize that frustrates me the most about online censorship targeting sex workers. Here's a fun fact. Here's me putting my media studies degree and my whore hat on. Did you know that the only reason the internet exists and looks the way it does is actually because of sex workers? Let me tell you some history here. So think about it, right? Netflix, paywall. You have to pay to enter this thing to get access to a media. What does that remind you of? Porn. And there was this woman called Danny Harddrive. She was like this porn star who created I think one of the earliest porn websites, Danny's Harddrive, where people could pay to enter a platform that provided them with nudes. And so you think about things like Netflix and Disney Plus and paid CNN, like this paywall that exists on the internet, they got that idea from porn. They got that idea from online porn. That idea came from sex workers. Social media, paywalls, everything on the internet exists because of porn. And so it pisses me off so much that sex workers built the fucking internet. We built social media. We built chat rooms. We built platforms and paywalls. And now we're being booted off because the reason people hate sex workers so much, because sex workers get paid, financially compensated for something that patriarchy says women need to do for free. So another understanding of whorephobia I really need people to understand is that people just hate that women are the benefactors of their sexuality because they think it should be only men that make money off women's sexuality. So when women are directly benefiting from they're receiving the money from it, it pisses people off. So they try to make it a lot harder for us. And that's why online censorship exists. Women were able to financially benefit by quote unquote exploiting men's need for feminine nudity, and it pissed men off. So they come together. I mean, the fact that foster sister happened under a Trump law should tell you fucking everything. We all know that guy is on Epstein's list. We all fucking know Trump is a rapist. That guy doesn't give a fuck about sex trafficking victims. He is the reason sex trafficking fucking exists for people like him. He's a purchaser of sex trafficking. He doesn't give a fuck about sex trafficking. He gives a fuck that there are women making money telling their sexual services. And that's why foster sister exists. So that's that little tangent. I don't want this whole episode to just be me talking. So, Madeline, would you maybe like to share your experiences with being deplatformed and or not even just censorship, and how you have to navigate that? Because like you said, a huge part of your job is on the internet.
Yeah, so again, like what happened with me and Vixen's Buy Me a Coffee, that's happened to me with like almost every single online platform. I've had OnlyFans, I've had well, I have Patreon, I have my own Buy Me a Coffee, I have all of these kinds of things, and I have gone through all of the stupid fucking hoops that you have to jump through. There are so many things that I just do, like from a place of absolute habit now, that I forget that I actually do because they essentially keep me on Instagram and not deleted so often. And another question I get all the time, am I Ask Me Anythings? Um, People get like shitty at me or confused as to why I use a dollar sign when I talk about uh, strippers, or why I say SW instead of sex work. Um, People who are either, I don't know, new to my platform and don't know what I'm talking about, or that just think that I'm doing it to be cool, like as if I'm putting a dollar sign on stripper to like make it look like more swag. Um, when actually the reason that I'm doing that is because if I'm out here screaming those words on my story, left, right, and center, I'll at the very least get ruthlessly shadow banned, sorry, which means like essentially my content, my engagement gets put at the bottom of the algorithm, and no one will see anything that I post or, whatever. And at the worst, I'll just get deleted off the app, which would be like, in a business sense, completely devastating, like completely devastating. Um, I don't know, maybe it's not. I think it's not been so bad here, but in the UK right now, and in the States actually, sex workers are getting deleted off Instagram like crazy. Strippers posting stripper stuff online are just getting deplatformed left, right, and center. And it has been just evoking so much anxiety in me. Like, I'm just sitting there thinking like, fuck, like I need to like be so fucking careful. I need to police like everything that I post to like pole fit queens that are posting their pole fit on their accounts that like don't have heaps of followers, maybe have a few less, and they're doing the same thing as me, but maybe they're wearing pole fit gear and they don't really have to worry. Whereas, somehow they figure it out. Strippers like myself, if I was to wear my work attire on my Instagram all the time, which I'm very specific about not doing, um, honestly, I think I would be so quickly in the firing line. Like, I think I would be, yeah, my Instagram account would be in so much danger. I pretty much always train in like booty shorts now, like little pole pants now. Firstly, love those pants. I've got them in 5 colors, but it's a purposeful thing because I know the way that I move my body and the extent to which my legs are willing to open. If I'm wearing what I fucking want to wear, which is a micro bikini or like a tiny little bodysuit, you're seeing a lot, right? Which I don't give a single shit about. But Instagram gives a massive shit about, and if they delete my Instagram account or whatever it is, my finances, my income, my job security, everything in the fucking toilet. Like in the fucking toilet. And what's really frustrating about it is that for a lot of strippers specifically, pole fitness can be a safer environment to work in. So, for example, when I stepped away from working 3 nights a week in the club, I pretty much immediately stepped into almost full-time pole dance instructing and performing. And in order for me to make a career in that, I have to have a social media and I have to, push myself on social media, which I do. And unfortunately, if that social media goes in the toilet, my pole fit career, low-key, like also sort of goes in the toilet. And that will then push me and others like me back into in-person sex work. And this is something Vixen like talked on earlier. That is so fucking that is so fucking frustrating. But yeah, do you have anything to say to that, Vixen?
Oh, I have so much to say. So what I want to add to that is that when Foster Sister was first implemented, myself and many other online sex workers were really saying to people like, listen, they're coming for sex workers first, but they will come for the rest of you. This isn't just about us. You shouldn't only care because it's going to impact you negatively eventually, but if that is the thing that makes you care, they're going to come for you next. Because as I said, the same thing happened with, fascist Nazi Germany. They go for the minorities first. They go for the people they know no one cares about. No one cares about sex workers. No one cares about the disabled community. So we're like the guinea pigs. We were the guinea pigs of online censorship. And we have been warning people for years, they're going to come for you next. And so in recent years, when I have started seeing other people, I don't know if anyone else has tried to make a story on Instagram. They might have, you can't even say fuck the government on Instagram. Sometimes you go to upload that as a story and you'll get that notification that says, oh, some of the words in this aren't so good. Do you maybe want to edit what you've said? That happens. That is online censorship. Censorship is a huge tool of fascism. They burn library books. They want to keep us, they don't want us having information. They want to control what information we receive. So when people started speaking of, oh my God, I'm being shadow banned for saying this thing and I can't speak up about this. I have compassion for them, but I'm not going to lie. There was a while where I was bashing my head against the wall being like, well, if you listen to whores, you would fucking know that this was coming.
Honestly, I will say, there was a while where, and I actually said this in my workshop a couple of times, but because the people love to hear us being resentful sex workers, it can be really fucking frustrating to hear civvies or privileged, quite normal people being angry about the shadow ban and it affecting them because it's like, well, we told you, and also it's been happening to us in very, very obvious ways where you should know that this has been happening to us for a long time, and unfortunately for us, this isn't our cute little fun Instagram that we have for funsies. This is our work Instagram. This is our career. So that's just my own resentment for a second there, but I just thought that would be an interesting thing to add.
No, and I think it's really important that we do hold space for us to have that frustration, because it just speaks to a wider issue of how much society, as we talked in our last episode, doesn't listen to sex workers when we're the expert on so many things. That if you actually, it's like we said in the last episode, the most mentally ill people in the world are usually talking the most sense, and that's why they've been dismissed as mentally ill, so you won't listen to them. Censoring sex workers is another way to alienate us. And it's quite fascinating. So I've had a few friends of mine that are civvies, they aren't sex workers, get deplatformed for adult solicitation because they might, I don't know, they're like models or whatever, or they just post pictures of them in their bikinis, and they'll vent their frustration. And I know they don't realize that what they're saying comes across as really whorephobic, but they'll say things like, it's not fair I've been deplatformed, like I'm not even actually soliciting, as if, I know they don't mean it like that, but it's kind of implying like the people that's soliciting deserve it, but I don't. It's that respectability politics. Well, I'm not selling nudes. I don't know why I'm being deplatformed. What I'm trying to make very clear is that while Foster Sister is specifically targeted to deplatform sex workers, it's to eventually deplatform all of us who aren't right-winged Andrew fucking Tates. Like, it's really frustrating hearing civilian women complain, I've been deplatformed and I don't even have an OnlyFans. It doesn't actually help the narrative. When are you going to wake up and realize that as long as sex worker bodies are being policed and governed and censored, all bodies are being policed and governed and censored? The way that the world treats sex workers is how they feel about anyone that isn't a skinny, straight, able-bodied white guy. And we live in a puritanical world that hates sex positivity because sex positivity teaches bodily autonomy, and that makes you harder to manipulate by the people in power, the 1%, if we know our bodies, if we are in tune with our pleasure politics. So when people complain about, oh my God, I'm being shadow banned and deplatformed, like, that sucks. I have compassion for them, but they really, if they really want to combat that, they need to actually educate themselves on whorephobia and realize that it's because of whorephobia that this is happening to you. In a way, you're experiencing whorephobia. You don't even need to fully be an S worker to be at the receiving ends of the negative impacts that whorephobia has. Whorephobia impacts all women. It impacts all queer people. It impacts it impacts people of color, because the hatred that sex workers experience is linked to racial fetishization and misogyny and transphobia. And so when people complain about being shadow banned and deplatformed, like I remember a few years ago starting to see Instagram accounts of people that sell like showgirl clothing or burlesque wear or bikinis or whatever, being like, oh my God, like my business is struggling, please help me. I hate to admit this. I'm not proud of the fact that my brain saw that and went, well, now you know how it fucking feels. Us sex workers have been crying about this for years. We literally can't feed ourselves because our means of income is being deplatformed, and you're begging people to care about you when you didn't give a fuck about it when it was happening to sex workers. And I'm going to care about you because I'm going to be the bigger person here. But can you give that compassion back and understand that the reason this is happening to you is because it's happening to sex workers first?
Period.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add about, I don't want this whole episode to be me talking, but I have just so much to say about this topic.
I think, I mean, like, we spoke about this before we did the episode, and, like, I think what's really interesting about this is that you're kind of educating me as well. Even though I know a fair bit about this stuff, a lot of the, like, deep political things attached to this topic, I don't actually know that much about. But, like, what I used to say in one of my workshops, in my workshop, this one sometimes is one of those things that I like don't say every single time because sometimes we get very wrapped up in other parts of the conversation. But what I have said in the past is, and it's in a bullet point in my little, I don't have a script, but I have bullet points to keep me on track, and it says like mindfulness around like Instagram posting. And the spiel that I sort of go on is that I talk about how oversaturated pole dancing is on Instagram and how much that affects people who are pole dancing as a means of income and are sex workers essentially. So, me posting pole dancing online, trying to get customers to come into the club, posting pole dancing online, trying to get people to buy custom content from you, whatever it may be. If you're a sex worker and you're posting pole dance and that is your pull in of customers, because that space is so saturated online. This is, and again, this can be quite an unpopular opinion, but this is something that Bam Rose, our friend from the States, has said a few times, and to an extent, I actually agree with this. Keeping your Instagrams private can really help sex workers keep making money via Instagram and keep us able to, I guess in a sense, like stay at the top of the algorithm. But something else that I say in that little spiel is like, we just want you to understand that whilst it is really upsetting to lose your Instagram or to be shadow banned and to be, putting your art out there and to be like not feeling like it's being super like acknowledged or praised, seen, whatever. Whilst I'm an artist and I put my pole dancing online as an artist and to show it to people to be like, oh my God, like look at this thing that I did and it's so beautiful. Just keep in mind that my Instagram acts as a funnel for my business. It acts as a way to get people to come to me in whatever sense it is, whether it is that they want custom content, if it's that they want to go and see me naked, they can go and see me naked online. Is it, again, for my pole fitness stuff, is it students that want to come to my workshops, my classes and stuff? So when I lose my Instagram, again, like I said earlier, it's such a massive deal, and it also, this ties into our last episode about mental health, but like your livelihood being that fragile is so impactful on your mental health. It is so terrifying to be trying to like use a platform to make money, better yourself, grow your career, and knowing that like at any point you could just do the tiniest misstep and your entire like work is just gone. It's just gone. All the following that you've tried to build, which is, again, so much harder for sex workers to even build a following in the first place. This is going to sound really cocky, but I am pretty sure that if I wasn't a sex worker or a sex work advocate, I would have so many more followers than I do right now. I don't measure my like success with my followers, but it is a big part of business, more followers, more people buying my content, my services, XYZ. But it is so freaky and scary and stressful to know that it could just all get like taken, gone, bye, and you just can't get it back. And like, I just know that if that happened to me, I would be in the fucking pits, And that is just terrifying. Yeah, that's another little rant or like tidbit from me. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it from like a maybe more mental health perspective.
I'm really glad you mentioned the mental health impacts of being deplatformed, because I have been deplatformed multiple times and I would like to talk about that. So as I mentioned, like I used to have an Instagram called Vixen Temple blog. It was my Instagram where I posted, my blogs about being a sex worker, and that's what gained me quite a large platform over the years, and I think why I became such a well-known advocate. I had people all over the world following me. I was followed by Exotic Cancer and Kitty Velour and like Jackie the Stripper, like big, big sex worker names. People in the sex work community probably know those names. I was doing a lot of activism on the internet, and I got to about 15,000 followers in the end, and I was very proud of myself. That Instagram was a way for me. I always said that Instagram, gave me a voice in a world that has made me feel voiceless. It helped me connect to sex workers all across the world and allies. My followers were sex workers and allies, and the amount of messages I would get from people saying that my content and my blogs really made them confront their internalized whorephobia and made them think differently about I remember actually I had a friend that I was best friends with in intermediate who sent me a message being like, I'm not going to lie, when I first saw that you were stripping, I felt really bad for you and I was quite disgusted by you. But then I was reading your blogs and I follow your content and I was wrong. And, you know, like I've had a really warped perception of stripping and thank you so much for that. I used to get like those messages a lot. It was really cool. So my online, I wasn't making money doing that, but it did give me a community, which was so beautiful. And in saying that, when I got to 10,000 followers, I remember over the span of like maybe 2 months from getting 10,000 followers, I was at 15,000 and my followers were like, I was going up every day. I was gaining followers every day. And I remember being like, okay, you know what? I think it's time for me to thinking about how I could monetize this so that I can do this more, because I felt that, you know, the mahi I was doing on that was important. And I think I was finally getting to a point where I was like, maybe I deserve to get paid for this, because I have a weird relationship around money. Unless I'm sucking dick, I feel like I'm not entitled to money. Like, it's like, of course I should get paid to have sex with someone. But, I have a lot of that internalized misogyny of like, just giving out my emotional labor a lot for free. And I'm getting better over the years of monetizing my worth. But, so I'm getting a lot of followers and I'm thinking to myself, I want to start trying to monetize this. This is really exciting. There's opportunities that can come from this. While I'm the same as Madeline, I don't equate my worth to my following. We do live in a world where large followings can open doors for you. And I remember thinking to myself, the bigger my following, the more I'm going to have opportunities to, like, maybe I could get a book publishing deal. People literally get book publishing deals, not because they deserve it, but because they have a large fucking following. And I felt not only did I have a large following, but I'm actually a really good writer. So I was thinking about how a large following could benefit me. And then one day, I post to my Vixen Temple blog. I was going to go to a protest in Tamaki Makaurau. It might have been a rape crisis protest. I can't quite remember, but it was something to do with like sexual assault. And so I had painted a sign that said sex work is not consent. And I put the picture on my Instagram with the caption explaining that the reason I have this protest sign is because I was assaulted as a stripper and my job was used to say that, you know, there's a degree of consent already established in those environments. So I wanted to bring in the sex work conversation to a conversation about rape culture. And I put that up on my Instagram and I made the caption that said, you know, this is my story. If you're a man and you can't be around naked women without assaulting them, don't fucking come to the strip club. I go to bed, I wake up the next morning and I log on, and that whole Instagram was deleted because of that one post, because it was flagged as hate speech and terrorism. Like, the way that Andrew Tate can exist on the internet, but I literally say, if men can't control their urges, they need to stay home. That gets flagged as hate speech. I lost my entire platform. I went crazy a few months later and tried to kill myself. Like, and it's so annoying because you say that to people and they think you're being so dramatic and like, it's like, oh my God, you're so superficial. I don't think people understand how much of our world exists on the internet. When you lose that, can you just consider for a minute, if you woke up tomorrow and your Instagram was gone, whether you make money off it or not, it would impact you. It would impact you, small or big. It will impact the way you navigate life because so much of our lives exists on the internet. You would lose connections with people. You know, it's from 1 minute to another, it's just gone. And so I plummeted into a deep depression. And then this was around the time that Auckland went into that like long extended lockdown. And I just broke. I couldn't believe years of work. I lost all my content. There's things on that blog that I can never get back because it was just deleted. So I became morbidly depressed. And not many people around me could understand that. A lot of my friends were very supportive of it, but I don't think a lot of people really understood why it was impacting me so much. Online censorship and being deplatformed, it's a form of social ostracization. It's isolating. It's just so disheartening. And this happened in 2021, so it's 4 years ago, but still to this day, when I talk about it, it like I get tears in my eyes because it's like, that was such a big part of my life, and I was so proud of the Mahi I'd done with Vixen Temple blog, and for it to just, I sometimes still to this day think to myself, like, fuck, the amount of followers I could have had by now. I could have published a book. I could have had all of these things I wanted to do. But because I made a post saying that men should be held accountable for their actions, I lost that. It's so depressing. And I think beyond that, it's the injustice of it all that I think got me the most. Being on the autistic spectrum, we are very sensitive to injustices. And I want to, while we're on that topic, I just want to make it very clear that there's not a set justice that every autistic person subscribes to. It's just what that justice looks like for them. But we are deeply sensitive to perceived injustices through the lens of what our justices are. And for me, that was an injustice of, I feel like I'm a woman in the witch hunt where, like, I've said, I'm starting a dialogue about, hey, so some men actually, like, go out of their way to assault strippers who are women, and that's really dangerous. And everyone was able to just point at me and go, witch! And that got me shut the fuck up. The injustice of it all, I think, on top of everything else, made me go, I snapped. I remember there was a day that I really just lost it, and I was like hitting myself and like just being like, what the fuck? Like, I was just speaking my truth, and I'm being punished for something that I'm being punished because I was assaulted. It was just like going through the justice system all over again. That voicelessness of being a victim of sexual abuse and speaking about it and then being deplatformed. It was a lot, man. Like, online censorship, it's a really intense thing. And I really want to now mihi what Madeline said about the Polfit community. It would be really helpful if you're a student of Polfit to just set your profiles to private. Like, why we don't need to oversaturate the internet with something that would be great. You know, back in the day when it only existed in strip clubs, strippers made way more money. Social media has impacted the economic state of the strip club. And that's just something that I think we need to hold space to have a conversation around, how online censorship, it impacts people beyond ways that I think people need to look outside themselves for a minute and consider, like, it is such a fucked up thing that people are being deplatformed in an era where social media and having a social media presence can get you so many opportunities that otherwise you aren't allowed to have.
I think, honestly, this feeds into everything you just said, but I'm so sorry. If you are someone who looks at someone that gets deplatformed, especially someone who runs their Instagram in a way that they're actually, like, not just using it as a fun little personal hobby Instagram, it's a business Instagram or a specific Instagram dedicated toward a specific thing. If you see that happen, them deplatformed, and your immediate thought is to be like, oh, that's so shallow, or like, that's really dramatic of you to be upset, please get some perspective. Like, that's not all good. I think that people at this point should really understand that, like, Instagram fucking sucks. Yes, we all know it. Like, it's bad for us. It's upsetting at times. It's, overwhelming. The way that it's run is horrible. But unfortunately, we actually do just live in a world where, like, you kind of need to have one in order to get your career to grow or work or even exist. And yeah, I think it's this culture of everyone just kind of like thinks that influencing and being on Instagram and using your Instagram for your business makes you an influencer. And the fact that, influencers are just sort of like, they don't have a lot of respect from, I would say, society. But like, like, it's not an even playing field for sex workers in any space. It's not an even playing field. And so when our things are taken away from us, our accounts are taken away from us, it is very different. It is very different. And also, like, feeding into it, like, for Vixen and myself included, like, when you're aware of these things, like we said in the last episode, the more you open your eyes to these issues, this whole phobia, the online censorship, it is depressing, it is upsetting. And so when you see the direct result and like such an aggressive result of that, to have your business Instagram taken from you, all of your work, that is just so damaging, so damaging. And anyone that wants to say to you, Vixen, or anyone else who experiences this, specifically sex workers, that it's just Instagram, you'll be able to make it again, shut the fuck up. Please shut the fuck up. Like, I'm really sorry. Again, we are like broken records in this episode, but it is just crazy. It takes so much work to build an Instagram if you are posting anything outside of the acceptable like social norms. It is so fucking hard, and yeah, having it wiped is just fucked. Sorry, I just have to add to how angry I am about that for you. But yeah, frustrating shit, man. Like I'm really like fingers crossing that what have I done to my account, Vixen? What's that thing that I've done to it? Oh, I've verified my account. I am still trying to figure out whether that makes any difference at all. But for me, so far, I'm still there. So that is money, and I know we're not all privileged enough to be able to, I think it's like 28 NZD a month, but it could be an option, I guess, for some sex workers for a sense of like peace of mind, I guess, that there is like maybe a semblance of protection against some of this bullshit. But yeah.
No, I always encourage, I mean, I've learned this the hard way, like just like, what's the word, backfile us, like save everything, create copies of everything. Yeah, thank you for validating that. Like, it is a really, I think people that say, oh, that's so silly and shallow would have a different opinion if it happened to them. But also, like, regardless of whether your Instagram is used for business or not, I just think there's no denying that we live in a world where it's so hard to exist without an Instagram. I think constantly to myself, I want to delete my Instagram. I don't want to be on Instagram anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I think how much that would impact like my bookability as a performer, how much news I get from Instagram, how much I know about protests via Instagram, and I get the news that mainstream news won't be telling me. But that's the reason why censorship is another thing, because social media has become a huge, like, I remember back when I was studying media at university, our lecturer asked us, like, where do you all get your news? And the majority of us said social media. It was very, very rare that people were reading newspapers or watching the news, because more of us trusted, like, self-employed journalists that had like their own individual social media accounts to be reliable journalists more than mainstream media, because we know mainstream media, they don't want to fucking call what's happening in Gaza a fucking genocide. They don't want to, they'll saturate things. They'll filter things. The social media is a really good way for people to get that unfiltered reality of the world. And that's another reason why censorship is such a big thing. I almost feel like back in 2018 when Foster Sister was brought in, it was the seedling of where we are now as a society in terms of being so fascist and right-winged. It was all planted back in that time with online censorship of sex workers, knowing that the political climate was going to get more right-winged. People were going to try to push back against that. And so they need to censor and deplatform those people. I see so many pro-Palestine advocates be deleted, pro anything that's against the right-winged agenda being deplatformed, because they're the ones pushing through the cloud of mainstream media propaganda saying here's actually the truth. And that's another thing that, like, why online censorship is so dangerous. Another reason it's actually really dangerous that I think is quite fascinating, putting this in a historical context. So I just finished reading this really good book, Untold Intimacies, A History of Sex Work in Aotearoa. And I've written a review of it for Trist, a horror review, which will probably be out by the time this episode is live. But I highly recommend reading the book. But they talked about, in Aotearoa, prior to sex work being decriminalized, when sex workers wanted to register themselves and their services as like sensual massage in local magazines, because that used to be a big thing. I don't know if people remember, because I used to grow up reading magazines. At the back of magazines that have like advertisement, it was usually like, get your psychic, like a psychic medium read, or whatever. But there was also, you know, like you'd see like phone sex or, sensual massage or like paid girlfriend experience or whatever. People used to advertise through magazines and newspapers. And back in the day, I think in like the 90s, it might have been, in order for sex workers in Aotearoa to advertise themselves through that, they had to register themselves through the police. And so that was terrifying. Can you imagine as a sex worker having the police have your full legal name written down? Because
That's fucked.
that's
That's
terrifying.
crazy.
And it's terrifying. So in order for independent sex workers to advertise their services, they had to register themselves to the police. And when I was reading that chapter of the book, it reminds me of how nowadays, in order for people to make an OnlyFans account, they have to send their passport off. You have to register yourself. And I don't know if people know that recently here in Aotearoa, they've been thinking of, what was it I saw? Of attaching so much of our social security to like our driver's license, and like this surveillance culture we live in where you need to register yourself through like your passport or your driver's license, a picture of yourself and your full legal name. That's linked to whorephobia. That is linked to having to register yourself so that the government can keep track of you, so that you're a number, so that we can be sheep to them. I don't think people understand how much online censorship, you join to a website, you have to send a picture of yourself holding your passport. That's because of foster sister. You have to prove, like with the Buy Me a Coffee, we had to prove that we weren't sex workers by sending in screenshots and all these proofs of who we are. And like on YouTube, in order for us to have a YouTube channel, I had to upload a video of myself holding a sign while turning to the camera multiple ways. They're like analyzing my fucking face. It's so scary, and it's so weird because I am so scared of, like, don't even get me started on like AI and the future of, please bear in mind I have a media degree. When I say I am scared for the future of online media, you guys should be scared, because I see where it is going. Social media, surveillance culture, it is all linked to whorephobia. It is all linked to the censorship of sex workers. And the more we understand that, I really want you to have that in mind when you see laws come in of like, if you want to do this thing, you have to register your passport or your driver's license or whatever. You need to scan all of these things and be on a registered list that the government and the police have access to. That's linked to sex work. It's because of the way that we police sex workers' bodies that you are being policed by that. Does that make sense?
It makes total fucking sense. And like, I think that a lot of people, well, most people, just genuinely have no idea how this is all fucking about whorephobia. Like, and again, if you want to hear more about whorephobia, go, what is it, 2 episodes back? We did a lot on whorephobia, but like, and it's, again, like, it's depressing, but so much of the way the world is today is because of the way that sex workers have been policed. And this is another reason why we are so fucking frustrated by the treatment of sex workers, because I know some people probably think, oh, they're just mad that like people don't talk down on them, and that like people do pole dancing and like don't respect them and stuff. But it is so much deeper, so much more systemic than that. It is that, but it is way, way more. And this is why sex workers are so fucking fed up, because the way the world is built is, on one side, built off the back, like a lot of progress in the world and a lot of culture in the world, especially pop culture, is built off the back of sex workers. And then on the other side of it, a lot of things that exist to police people have started with policing sex workers. And sex workers have been like, hey, bruh, like, listen, we're trying to, this is weird. It's not really, it's crazy. And then no one does anything. No one gives a single shit about sex workers. And then it gets to this point where it starts to trickle out into the wider society. And then everyone is suddenly bothered. And it is just so fucking frustrating. And again, it's like the underlying thing to so many issues that me and Vixen will talk about. The way that sex workers have been shat on and stolen from goes so, so deep. This is why we are so frustrated.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where there's, like I said, there's a reason they're deplatforming us, because we know shit. We're opening people's eyes up to shit that, when I say they, I mean like the 1% in power. They create all of these, like, the scapegoating, the fear mongering of like, you guys need to fight amongst yourselves so that you won't actually realize that we're the fucking enemy and that, eat the rich. Like, it's so silly to create this. When you isolate people, when you isolate a group, you create misunderstanding around them, which creates fear, which feeds into the ostracization that sex workers experience. Like I said, when I gave a talk to representatives of the World Health Organization about how this is going to impact the queer youth, and that's by specifically flagging any content that falls outside of the two gender heteronormative binary and white supremacy as pornography, as pornographic. It's really dangerous. When I remember being a teenager and making sense of my bisexuality and my queerness and trying to navigate that. And the internet, Tumblr was a big thing, and it helped me navigate a lot of that and make sense of that. And, oh, okay, like, this thing I resonate with. And it was such a good community notice board for me to refer to, because I grew up in Ōtepoti, Dunedin. I went to an all-girls school where bisexual girls were fucking bullied and bashed. So, like, I'm not gonna fucking go to my classmates and be like, hey, I think I want to eat pussy. Like, I'm gonna... Is it normal that I, like, am having sex with my boyfriend, but I keep thinking about women? Like, I took to the internet to learn those things. And I think about how scary it is now for queer youth that come onto the internet, and because the voices that could have been parenting them have been deplatformed, now they're just coming onto the internet. Our trans youth are coming on and seeing that trans people are predators and pedophiles. And it's so dangerous, this echo chamber that gets built when the voices of those groups are being censored and deplatformed. Meanwhile, the hate is being platformed. The world is the way it is now because the internet has created a means of fear mongering, and because the voices of those that can counteract that fear mongering are being deplatformed. Why do people think the world fucking looks the way it does now? Why everyone fucking blames trans people for something that is not trans people's problem? Oh, it's sex workers' fault that men abuse us. It's trans people's fault that kids get abused. It's drag queens' fault. It's like, that shit comes from a Facebook comment section because no one's fucking doing the fucking critical thinking. There's another thing about online censorship is that it discourages critical thinking, because you're being fed the same rhetoric and not being asked to think critically about it. Oh, fucking drag queens are abusing your kids. Oh my god, I read on Facebook that they're eating cats in Springfield, and like, it feeds so much hatred into the world. And there are so many important voices out there that get deplatformed who could be doing the work to counteract that. Myself, for example, I was a person that was counteracting a lot of people's whorephobia and making people go, oh, you know what? I think it's really weird that I hate sex workers and claim to be a feminist. Like, what the fuck's that about? I was impacting the world beautifully, and I got deplatformed. I got punished for it. And I always, refer to, like, the silly little joke of, like, I'm a fucking phoenix rising from the ashes, or like the Hydra and like monster in Greek mythology. If you cut my head off, another one grows. Like, the more you try to silence me, the more warranted I feel in my plight, because I'm like, well, you're just proving my point. But it is frustrating to have to constantly battle that paranoia of like, is this thing I post the thing that's going to make me deplatformed again? I remember last year when I was promoting a drag show I do through Ivy Bar, Red Light Night. It's a drag show where everyone in the cast is a sex worker, and the show is created to like honor the whakapapa, the shared whakapapa of drag queens or drag performers and sex workers. And I remember I did a photo shoot at the apartment here in Poneke, and it was like me and my co-star. I had them tied to like that bondage X thing, and I was like whipping them, and I put the poster up, and it got flagged. It was like, no, and I think I got suspended from Instagram for like a couple of hours, or I couldn't go live, or I got shadow banned, and it made advertising the show a lot more difficult. And now, anytime I post anything, like, I'm so careful about the language I use. As Madeline said earlier, the dollar sign and this S worker, it's gotten so bad that in my real day-to-day life, when I'm off the fucking internet, I'm saying swerker. And I remember a couple of weeks ago.
SW,
Yeah.
What do you mean?
SW. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a board meeting with NZPC, and I mentioned swerker. I keep saying swerker, and they stopped me. They're like, sorry, what are you saying? Because these are these are like the elder generation of sex workers. I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm saying sex worker. I'm just so used to like saying swerker because I'm on the internet so much. And it was just this funny little like cute moment of intergenerational connection. But it was like, oh, that's so cringe that I censor myself even in the real world. That's how much social media follows us, like this weird symbiotic relationship we have with this thing, that I'm in the real world saying S worker because I'm censoring myself so much because I'm so used to that being censored. So it's a big important conversation that people need to be really mindful of, because let me tell you, as someone with a media degree, this is dangerous for us. Like, as we move into a world with AI generated content that demands us to provide our identity through sending a picture of ourselves, holding up our passports, registering ourselves, I think people need to be really mindful that all of that connects back to how society treats sex workers, and we need to fucking really think critically about this, because I am genuinely scared. I don't mean to fearmonger, but I am genuinely scared for the future of media and surveillance culture and how it is going to impact us, let alone the youth that are growing up with that as the norm.
Period. And if you want to see a really great example of me getting annoyed and frustrated at this, you can go and look at one of my most recent videos. It's a video where I'm doing tips for freestyles, and it's on my Instagram. And at the end of the video, you'll see a bit where I get frustrated and I say, oh, too much crotch. And then I cover my crotch with my hand. And that's not because I think there's too much crotch. In my opinion, never enough crotch. But the moment I started doing it, I went, can't post that. What's the point? So, period.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, didn't you have to, like, you had to edit your pussy out of a picture from Concept Stage Spot?
Yeah. My pussy wasn't out, but like, it was the way that my underwear looked, and it's a nude costume, so it was questionable. I was like, oh, that could kind of look that way, and it was just really on display, and so I was like, okay, I need to like somehow like edit this out, and I managed to make it like less obvious. But yeah, I was looking at these photos from Concept Stage Spot, and I'm wearing this nude costume, and I'm doing all of these crazy tricks. My legs are like behind my head in the most fucked up ways, and it's just giving crotch. It's giving straight up crotch. And so I was like, fuck, like, I need to edit this in some way so that the underwear is more obvious, and so that it looks more like flat, so that it's not in your face. Because I was like, otherwise I just genuinely don't think I can post these. And yeah, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, who the fuck spends an hour of their time editing their badge out of their fucking like photos to post on the internet? Me, apparently.
It's actually cooked. Like, look, listen, I'm such an exhibitionist. Like, if there is ever a day where they get rid of online censorship and we can now have nudes on the internet, I'm telling you, I am shoving my camera phone up my pussy, up my ass,
Yes.
taking a picture, putting it, like, oh my God, I just am so tired of people not clocking that when we are when we are censoring bodies on the internet, it's going to encourage us to censor ourselves in real lives. And we as a society are so fucking terrified and demonize feminine sexuality so much, even more if it's a trans woman, even more if it's a fat woman, even more if it's a fucking woman of color, we fucking fetishize and are so scared of feminine sexuality, and censorship plays into that. And it's just such a frustrating conversation to have with people. I know that there's always the like, oh, but what about the children? It's just this like, I think there's a way that the internet, listen, I'm going to be so honest. I think the internet is an inherently adult space. I'm not saying that children shouldn't be on the internet, but I think that there's a conversation to be had about how we can monitor the way that children engage with the internet so that they're not being exposed to like porn. But I just think it's ridiculous to be getting rid of porn off the internet when porn is the reason that the internet has paywalls and even exists.
Period.
It's ridiculous. As I said, this is a topic that I'd say I know a lot about. I've spoken a lot on it to a point that I sound like a broken record whenever I talk about it, but then I will meet people that don't know about it. And I think it just feeds into my frustration because I'm like, I swear, I mean, like us sex workers, we have been talking about this 7 years ago. 7 years. This has been going on for 7 years, and we warned you all. I think what's so frustrating is that back in 2018, when myself and other online sex work activists and sex educators and queer educators were literally predicting and saying, this is what is going to happen with the future. The state of the world at the moment doesn't surprise me or those other activists with pattern recognition skills, with a basic understanding of media literacy and media, just the way that the media impacts the world, and a basic understanding of history and how history repeats itself. And it's really frustrating when you see people be so, I guess, ignorant to it. Maybe not to any fault of theirs, but it's like, like we said earlier, I don't like that my brain went here, but there was fuckama around me seeing people complain about their businesses being impacted because of online censorship, but not putting the connection that it's because of whorephobia. And especially, like, I remember when Foster Sister came in, like, there were people celebrating that sex workers were being deplatformed. It was such a big thing of, like, they're gonna go have to get a real job now, ha 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 ha, and, like, men celebrating it because they're like, yeah, these fucking bitches that were making money off me wanting to see them naked, those fucking whores, and women celebrating it because, like, yay, the world's healing because sex workers are being deplatformed. I'm a feminist and I'm celebrating that women just lost their means of income. Like, fuck you. Fuck off. And then knowing that those people, when their businesses get impacted, are going to be crying and expecting people to feel sorry for them when they were fucking celebrating that it was happening to us sex workers. And even despite that, I will still have compassion for these people because that is not fair that your business is being impacted. And even though you laughed when it happened to me, I care about it happening to you because I'm not a piece of shit.
Period. And I reckon we should end it there.
Yes. I think that's a great little end note. So, Madeline, do you have any closing thoughts for the day?
Oh, just engage with our content online. Please, please, please. We'll do anything. Please. No, we won't probably do anything. That's a complete lie. But, like, just like our shit, share our shit, comment on our shit, save our shit. Please follow us. Anything. All of the engagement on social media makes a fucking huge difference. It is such a frustrating and tiring fight to fight. So, please, the least you can do is literally double tap the fucking screen. Like, yeah, please. Great way to ally yourself, team.
Yep. We recorded 2 episodes today, this episode and the mental health one that came out in the last episode. And I think the overarching theme that we could close this with is, like, we need to listen to the voices of the most oppressed. They know it best, and if they're being told that they're mentally ill, they probably know it even more. There's a reason that people get deplatformed and censored, and if someone's being censored, properly censored, I'm not talking about cancel culture and being held accountable for your bullshit, people being censored because they are speaking up about systematic abuse, those are the voices that we should be listening to the most because they're holding secrets that the 1% don't want us to know. So, tēnā koutou, everyone, for listening. That was a really cool kōrero. Thank you, Madeline. We will see you all in the next episode of the show. But in the meantime, follow us on Instagram. Check out the show notes for any references and citations that I've linked. And I think I might try to link a book in the show notes that is a really good book about the history of internet and how sex workers and porn stars built that. I really highly recommend people read that book because it is fucking interesting. It will blow your mind, and it will make you even more angry that sex workers are being booted off something that wouldn't exist without us. You have been listening to Stripped and Unscripted with Vixen Temple and Madeline Rose. Thank you so much for the aroha. Thank you so much for the support. And we will see you in the next episode.